This podcast is brought to you by Reimagine Radio, the online radio station that aims to give you information on disability and music. My name's Graham Wyman, and I'm the program coordinator with the Vancouver Adapted Music Society. Today we are joined again by Mark Ash. Hello, Mark. How are you doing?
Hello, guys. Good to be here.
Yeah, no, thanks for joining
Glad
us.
to be back.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for joining us. So, we kind of got up to the point where you were playing music under Renee Worst and, you picked up the bass in high school, but kind of the band that I associate you with the most is Shy Thunder. Could you kind of let our listeners know kind of what Shy Thunder was about and how did you guys come together and get started?
Well, I used to go to school with Glenn MacLeod, and he was the guitarist, and it was his band.
Okay.
At the time, in the late 80s, I was playing with the Raymond Maybe, which got signed with Bruce Allen.
Oh, okay.
And it was more of a, it was more like Rolling Stones and John Cougar. It was more again. Shy Thunder was the glam rock band.
Yeah.
We were all about shredding, and that's what I wanted to do back then. It was just shred.
Right.
And for me, playing simple grooves was boring because I didn't fully get the bass back then.
Gotcha.
I thought playing grooves, there's not enough notes. I needed to shred.
Right.
And those guys were total shredders. And they were, at the time, they were working with Brian MacLeod, who was phenomenal musician.
Right.
So I auditioned for them. I grew my hair even longer.
Yeah.
I got some leather pants, and I was in.
There you go. And what were...
Plus, I had a puffy shirt.
Oh, there you go. Right. I've seen that puffy shirt. You did look like a pirate. So what were some of the highlights playing with Shy Thunder? I know that you guys toured across the country.
One time, we got the backup blues, they're called, and that was big. We played with Mr. Big, Billy Sheehan, and Paul Gilbert, and those guys were like they were not worthy. When you meet them, you go like from his world, we're not worthy. And Billy Sheehan signed one of my basses.
Okay.
And it was thought that every Monday night at Club Soda we had metal on Mondays. Okay. And we would have like 3 bands a night.
Okay. Yeah.
And we had bands like Alice in Chains came there.
Yeah.
First time. Club Soda.
Okay. And I guess so. I mean, it must have been pretty surreal for you, as in the last segment that we had, you were talking about how, for instance, Blue Oyster Cult was like a band that you love to listen to, and then you find yourself opening up for them.
Yeah, so that was fantastic. That's one of the highlights for me. I opened for many bands. I got to play with some really good musicians, but with music, you can always advance and play something more. Right. In music, you never learn everything. There's always something more. Right. But after I finished shredding, I began to really appreciate what bass does in music.
Mm-hmm. How did that change your perspective on the instrument?
Well, after I got disabled, my body didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my fingers.
Right.
I couldn't play bass like for 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when I began to play, it had to be very simple.
Right.
So,
So yeah, and I guess so. But before your accident too, though, you also operated and owned the York Theater on Commercial Drive, correct?
yes.
And so we've had a few conversations about this, but for our listeners, why don't you let them know kind of how who are some of the artists that you brought in? Because you were essentially a promoter at that time, right?
Well, I had a team of people to help me
Right.
run it.
Mm-hmm.
The highlights were when Ringo Starr came in '96 for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
He rented the whole theater for his all-star band.
Right.
And he had John Entwistle from The Who
Oh.
playing bass.
Yeah.
And John Entwistle, for me, was one of my heroes.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Thunderfingers,
in
right?
my generation bass solo.
Yeah.
We used to play My Generation.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time there's a bass solo in the song.
Mm-hmm.
And the song is not on the radio.
Yeah.
Like nobody play bass solos.
Yeah. No back
So, anyways, here's maybe you can tell viewers.
Okay. Yeah, so what Mark just did, this is a photo of Entwistle with Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And he gave me some bass strings.
Yeah.
And for me, it was awesome. It was like, wow.
Yeah. No, that's a very special moment for sure. And then you owned and operated the York Theater until 1997?
About there.
Okay. Gotcha. And then you mentioned this a little earlier, but in 2001 you had a very serious car accident, and it took you 5 years of rehabilitation to get back to a place where you could start playing music again. I mean, if you're comfortable, would you mind telling our listeners what that was like? Because I know for part of that you were not being able to play music.
Well, it took me 5 years just to speak again.
Mm-hmm.
It took me a couple of years to learn how to walk.
Mm-hmm.
I had to be put in a home where people had to help dress me, feed me, and I basically sat in the room for a year. I couldn't go outside by myself until somebody had to come and get me and take me.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually I started to improve. I push myself every day.
Right.
I tried to walk a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the pool. I began to walk in the water.
Right.
And that was a very good therapy.
Yeah.
And I still do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned when I could do much, I would listen to music a lot.
Right.
And I listened to everything, classical, jazz, rap. I was into rap like for a couple of years.
Right. Yeah.
And my ear has improved because of that. I think when some of their senses diminished, others heightened to compensate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, of course. And I was gonna ask, like, how did you notice your body responding differently? Because we've talked about this before, but how it responded differently, after your accident. And then I guess you kind of touched on that as well.
Well, in the brain where my damage occurred, the damaged brain cells can never heal.
Okay.
But the other areas of the brain can take over the functions
Right.
with a lot of repetition, nutrition, sleep, and eventually we make new pathways in the brain
Right.
and there's more neurons to fire stronger signals to muscles
Mm-hmm.
to work properly. So I studied how the body works and what I need to do to help it heal.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I think body by naturally it wants to survive. It wants to heal.
Right.
But we need to help our bodies.
Mm-hmm. No, of course. And then, so...
So my
No, go ahead.
yes,
No, go ahead.
my life became like a boot camp.
Mm-hmm.
I had to go to the gym every day. I had to exercise. I I had to push myself every day and motivate
Mm-hmm.
in order to get where I am.
Mm-hmm.
I know if I just sit down and give up, and I stopped listening to my doctor so much
Okay.
because with doctors I just got sleeping pills, painkillers, antidepressives.
Right.
I had to become my own doctor.
Yeah, I remember you saying somewhere where you took your rehabilitation into your own hands.
Right, right.
Yeah. And then, so, I mean, you were starting your rehabilitation, and then I believe, and I want to say it was, if I remember correctly, 2009, around then, that you got involved in VAMS. And how did that come about?
I think when I was just strong,
Mm-hmm.
I used to go by the studio at VAMS.
Right, because it's on the way to the
And I
pool.
poked my head in one day.
Mm-hmm.
What that? In the gym.
Yeah,
There's this gym on the other side.
yeah,
Yeah, I used to walk on those parallel bars.
yeah.
At first, I would take like 10 steps and be exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
But slowly, you build yourself up.
Yeah.
So I couldn't even speak very well,
Mm-hmm.
but I knew music
Right.
and I had some recordings
Mm-hmm.
and they accepted me. And later on, they requested a track for a Stray Goods
Mm-hmm.
compilation CD, and that's when I recorded For You Love.
Yeah, and that ties into my next question. So, For Your Love was the first track on Straight Goods. Um, maybe you can tell our listeners maybe what your writing process was like for that song, because it's quite an upbeat. It's got a rap in it. I can definitely tell, as you said, a few years you were into rap. That obviously was an influence. And also, what was it like, having a track featured on a VAMS record?
Oh, it was great. Of course, it was a big boost for me.
Mm-hmm.
But the song is really a love song. Like many of my songs, it's about love.
Yeah.
And it's about a boy who wants a girl.
Mm-hmm.
We can all relate to that.
Yeah. No, for sure. For sure. And so in 2018, skipping about 10 years ahead, we had the pleasure of playing with Pat Stewart and Doug Elliott from The Odds at the Strong Sessions. Um, what was it like rehearsing with Doug and Pat and kind of jumping into that?
Okay, before we get to Pat,
Yeah.
which is a great question, there was something in between that was very important.
Okay.
In 2010, I was awarded the Courage to Quebec
Right.
Award.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that was amazing. That's when I really had to know how to speak.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
had to make a speech for like big thousand people.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And they give you, and I was all shaky. I was wearing a tuxedo. And when you go on stage, there's so many lights.
Right.
And they give you this glass sculpture. And they almost dropped it.
Oh,
Because my fingers didn't work so well.
right.
And I thought, come on, what kind of shows? Who gives heavy, fragile objects to handicapped people on stage? I almost dropped that. That'd be
Right.
thousand people watching.
No, so that must have been like performing for the first time again.
Well, it was a romantic tragedy.
Yeah. So no, and then so that was 2010, and then I think you and I started working together in the studio in 2014, I believe.
Right.
Yeah, and then yeah, because we've been working together, recording your music for God, can you believe it's almost been 7 years? Yeah,
Yeah, I believe it.
and
When
then
you're working with somebody like Michelle,
mhm.
could take a while.
Right, right, the vocals, right, right, and then so again we cut back into 2018, and so yeah, I believe the two we played. What were the two songs? I know we did "Comfortably Numb," and do you remember the other song that we played?
It
It was TikTok, right?
covers,
Oh,
we
because we
did
did com-
TikTok, and we did everything at once.
Right, right, and so what was that?
Everything at once.
Yeah, everything at once. Those were two, and then so what was that experience like playing with Pat and Doug?
Well, that was super cool.
Hmm.
But it's like a freaking machine. He can play exactly like my drum machine,
Right. No, he's
but
very
he plays
precise.
it better. And playing with Doug, playing with two bass players, TikTok, he played that part that you came up with in the studio.
Right. Yeah.
So that was very cool.
Yeah. No, it was a very, very
Yeah,
concert.
it turned out well.
Yeah.
And you can listen to it on my SoundCloud.
Yeah, you've got it on there. Yeah, that's
There's a
great.
version.
Yeah, actually, why don't we get a little... Sorry?
Pata is fantastic drummer.
Yeah, no, he's
But
incredibly precise. And then, so, actually, why don't,
he's a good guy.
yeah, why don't, you let our listeners know, where they can find your music?
Well, it's Smart Audio, Ash, and SoundCloud.
Okay. So, yeah, that's Mark Audio Ash at SoundCloud.
Or you can go to VAMS and go from there.
Yeah,
I think there's a link.
Yeah, there definitely
Right.
is. And so, speaking of playing together again, we recently, literally last week, recorded a virtual concert at Carousel Theaters. Just given since the pandemic, what was, and we haven't been able to really play or get into the studio, what was that like, being able to, have a group setting and create some music?
It was great. I was so impressed. that we had a nice space,
Mm-hmm.
and we had a good engineer.
Yeah.
We had PA. We had lots of room,
Yeah.
and it was really easy because you already know the part. You were there with me developing all the songs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's true. No, and it was.
But having Dave on drums was a big plus.
Mm-hmm.
Having the girls do harmonies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that I can even play bass. I had to practice so much before that. Then when I got home, like my forearms were hurting, and I can't play.
Mm-hmm.
But it felt so good.
Yeah.
It's a good kind of pain.
Yeah. No, I know
So
exactly what
yeah,
you
I
mean.
think we should do more of that.
Yeah, no, that was definitely fun. And again, for myself, as you said, how we created a lot of these parts or these songs together in the studio, and it was nice to, I think it'd been a couple years since we'd actually done like a live set together playing the stuff, and we had some new
Mm.
tunes like A Day Without Yesterday that I think turned out really well. And it'll be fun to kind of play with that. But yeah,
That was awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, everybody loved it.
yeah. No, that was a
And
lot of
I
fun.
can't wait for the video.
Yeah.
When's the video coming?
So the video for our listeners, the concert will debut on March 12th. So a little less than a month. And then, yeah.
That's
So to take us out today, we'll be playing For Your Love. But Mark, I would like to thank you again for joining us. And
Thank you.
yeah, again, stay tuned to VAMS for Mark's virtual concert on March 4th. Or March 12th, apologies. Yeah, but thanks again, and you take care. And to all our listeners, stay safe and keep that music flowing.